हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
Alka Mataji, then go Pranam Jai Shri Prabhupada. I'll join back in few minutes. Mataji.
श्योर प्रभु जी।
Alka Mataji, how are you doing? I'll stop the recording. Either next week or next to next week, we will uh, change the time. All right. I'm always very eager to um, discuss a chapter of Bhagavatam. It's such a wonderful way to study Bhagavatam in a systematic manner and understand the flow of Bhagavatam. ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् सा साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांता स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्य कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरातिशय नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम्। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टाप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। So we are reading from the third canto, chapter 7. This is Enquiries, More Enquiries by Vidura. We are continuing our discussion of the conversation between Maitra Muni and Vidur. Maitra Muni and Vidur. Vidur, previously, last chapter, Maitra Muni described about the um, after the Mahatattva and um, from like Mahatattva, then the three modes, then mind, intelligence, senses, sense devatas. then um, uh, false ego, um, then earth, water, fire, air, ether. When all of these were created, then but they were disconnected. Then the Lord glanced and Lord sent his cohesive energy. Then they all amalgamated, or they all came together, and together they bind themselves, and then they form a structure, which is like an egg, like the universe. And there were many such universe which were created. Then the Lord, after the creation was done, then the Lord stayed idle for 1,000 celestial years. Then the sense devtas have nothing to do. So they were praying for the Lord for some service. Then the Lord, expansion of Garbhodaksha Vishnu was a universal form. And then we had a discussion about the universal form in the last session. Those who missed, I request for the continuity of flow. You can hear that. But just in summary, then there were different elements of the universal form that were created. The eyes of the universal form were created, the ears, the and then these devatas, they all sat in different angas of the Lord. And while describing the universal form and the greatness of the universal form and the glories of universal form, Maitreya Muni felt very much humbled. And he said, even Brahma could not describe the glories of the Lord. And how can I describe the glories of the Lord? And then he said, but just like a toddler, he glorifies his father. And the father is very happy with, because the father is like, for a toddler can only understand a speck of father's activities. Father does so many things. A toddler may understand only a few, and he appreciates, and father is happy with the child. Likewise, how much the Lord does, and who are we to, how much can we understand? We have limited realizations. But with whatever limited realization we have, when we glorify the Lord with those, then the Lord, like a loving father, is very much pleased with our endeavors. We are all part and parcel of Krishna, and we all come together. And Bhagavatam is basically non-different from the body of Krishna. It is said that the first two cantos are the lotus feet of Krishna, and it goes from the lower part of the leg to the knees, to the thighs, to navel, to the hands, to the neck, and then to the face. And the 10th canto is like the face of Lord Krishna. And and Bhagavatam only discusses about the pure devotional service or glories of the Lord. Bhagavatam deals with three major topics. One is who is the Lord, who we are, what is our relationship, and what is our goal, and how can we attain the goal. What is our relationship, what is the goal, and how can we get closer to the goal. And when Krishna sees that devotees come together and glorifies him and discusses together. And our discussion of Bhagavatam is like broken words. How can we glorify Bhagavatam and how can we glorify the Lord? And what realizations do we have to discuss about Bhagavatam and discuss about this pure conversation, discuss about the Lord? We are like few conditioned souls who are kind of going through the heat of the three modes of material nature. And how can we glorify the Lord or glorify the Bhagavatam? But still, when the Lord sees, okay, they are making some endeavor to discuss about me, keeping me in the center, the Lord blesses all of us. Why? Just because of his causeless mercy. So here, after Maitreya Muni was feeling like that. And he said, how can I describe the glories of the Lord? I feel very insignificant. And then the sixth chapter ends there. Now here, Vidura takes over the conversation. And then Vidura asks inquiries about Krishna. And he asks inquiry about the living entity. So first he asks about Krishna. And he says, the Lord is completely transcendental. Then how is he affected by the three modes? And now, how does Vidura feel the Lord is affected by three modes? Because in the eyes there are these devatas, then the Lord is getting destroyed. universal form is temporary, na? So there is a creation, there is annihilation, there is sustenance. So a lot of changes. It comes, goes. Garbhodakshay Vishnu comes and then he enters inside. Universes are created and they are destroyed again. So many things are happening and the Lord is in the center. So Lord is unchangeable, like he's eternally the same. But we see that the universal form is changing. There is destruction also. And he is dealing directly with the three modes of material nature. Um, that's how Vidura is thinking. So he's thinking when the Lord is completely spiritual, then why does he contact the three modes, the Maya? Why does he contact Maya? And another question he asks is, for children, I understand. Vidura says, children, I understand. Children may go to the beach, children may make a house, then the wave comes and it is destroyed. And children, they are impelled by certain desires. They want to construct, they want to destroy, they want to cook something, maybe in childish kitchen. Mother gives them a toy kitchen. So children, I understand. Vidura says that they have certain desires and they're looking for some activities and they do all these things. But why does the Lord have to do all these things? Like child, he is creating the universe, he is maintaining the universe, he is destroying the universe. When a child does such thing, creation, destroying, then I understand. But the Lord is self-satisfied. There is no activity, there is no reason for him to do anything. Then why is he acting like a child and does all this creation, maintenance, and dissolution? Now, these questions actually Maitya Muni didn't like. So we will see the Maitya Muni's response. But this is another. Now, again, Vidura is trying to dispel. Vidura is a pure devotee. He is Yamaraj, he is Mahajan. And we also see just like Arjuna is asking very, very obvious question to Krishna. And it is said that Arjuna is asking for the sake of all living entities. Likewise, it is said in the beginning of the previous chapter. It is said Vidura was self-realized. He has attained perfection. But he is asking Maitreya, and it is said that even self-realized souls, they ask question for the sake of others. Because some people think that the Lord comes in contact with matter. Lord is also influenced by material energy. Some people thinks like that. And that's why he's asking by asking, like, for sake of them, he's asking these questions. Like we hear in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked for universal form not for himself, but for the sake of other people, Prabhupada says. Then Vidura asks very nice questions. He says the living entity is pure. When the living entity is pure, transcendental, like the Lord, why does the living entity becomes engaged in ignorance? Like we have so many desires, and they are actually coming from ignorance. When the living entity is transcendental, why does he become engaged in ignorance? Then Vidura asks, the Lord is sitting in the heart of all the living entities. When the Lord himself is there, why does he allow the living entity to suffer? Why does the living entity suffer when the Lord is present in the heart? Kind of, these are like when we do 6 sessions. These questions, actually, we discuss these questions first. Many common people have these questions. So Vidura want, no, this is self-realized. So Vidura want Maitreya Muni to clearly answer these questions. Very, very kind of uh, obvious questions, um, which everybody probably will have. He's asking. Then Vidura said, please help me to clear my doubts. So two questions about the Lord and two questions about the Jiva. So one question about the Lord is, if the Lord is completely spiritual, why does he why does he seem to contact the material modes? I'll read a verse here. O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely spiritual, how is it that he is connected with the three modes? If this is his pastime, that he connects with the three modes, then how does his pastimes become free from the modes? this is very nice question, because we see in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divya. Krishna says, my activities are completely transcendental. My birth, my activities, everything about me is transcendental. And then here it seems that the Lord is contacting with, he's entering, then he is maintaining, and then he is destroying. Mataji, I'm in a class. Can I talk later? Thank you, Mataji. So here, um, that the Lord is engaged in creation, he's engaging in maintenance, destruction. And Krishna says, all my activities are complete transcendental. So Vidura is asking that why is he in contact with the three moons? Is it his pastime? That out of pastime he is interacting with three moons. If it is his pastime, then how does Krishna say that his pastime and everything is free from three moons? So I'm not able to understand. So that was the first question. Another is, like a child has certain desires, so he does create something, destroy something. Why does the Lord, who is completely self-satisfied, has to do all these things like a child? Like create, destroy, create, destroy, create, destroy, create, destroy. Why he has to do this? And how come the living entity who is pure engage in these material activities? He's transcendental and he is running behind all these things. And he has so many desires. Why he has to engage in this? And why is the living entity suffering when Krishna, who is most loving father, when he's sitting in the heart of all living entity? Of course, we know the answers also, but very generic questions. So first Maitra Muni, the he refutes um, mm, 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 Vidura's question about doubting the Lord as the Lord coming in contact with material nature. And then the answer, um, uh, Vidura says, what you are speaking is illogical. Uh, um, Sorry, Maitra Muni. Maitra Muni says, Vidura, what you are speaking is illogical. Why? Because some people agree, some people say that the Lord is covered by illusion. This is like, like if the Lord is connected with the matter, then the Lord is covered by illusory energy. So some people say that the Lord is covered by illusory energy, yet they also say that the Lord is vimukta, that the Lord is liberated. Or if the Lord is liberated, like we know that anybody who worship Lord becomes liberated. So if the Lord is liberated, it is mentioned everywhere in the scriptures, then how is it possible for him to be in contact with the material modes? We know the answer, that the Lord contacts the material modes only through the devatas. He does not directly comes in contact. And that's how he's always transcendental. Lord Shiva destroys, Brahma creates. And Brahma and Shiva only maintains also, actually. And Lord Vishnu, why is Lord Vishnu called the maintainer? He does not. Lord Vishnu, the devatas does all the maintenance also. The laws of karma does all the role also. The Lord is transcendental. Then how is it that the Lord maintains also? Whenever there is a difficulty in the universe, then the Lord comes and the Lord, um, by his internal energy, destroys the demons or sets things right, or Mother Earth is then brings Mother Earth back into the orbit, and whatever pastimes the Lord does. So in this way, wherever there is a disturbance, is that Brahma and Shiva and other devatas, when they cannot handle, whenever there is something that they can handle, they handle. But when it is beyond them, then Lord Vishnu himself comes. So he is in a way the ultimate maintainer. Devotees can mute. Okay, now coming to the second part, which is why the living entity goes through distress, why they are suffering. When the Lord is sitting in the heart of the living entity, why they are suffering. And Maitya Muni says the living entity is suffering because of their misidentification alone. Because the living entity is misidentifying themselves of who they are. That is why they are suffering. Now this is kind of my favorite section of this whole chapter. There is no factual background of the suffering. Just as one sees one's head cut off in a dream. We are sleeping, see a dream, our head cut off, and we go through a lot of distress. And then we wake up, and then we are like, oh, nothing happened to me. So likewise, um, the living entity, like Krishna also says, the living entity is not touched by fire, by withered by wind or burned by fire, or um, cannot be cut into pieces. The living being is eternal. The living entity experience this lamentation, experience whatever suffering, either physical or mental or intellectual or egoistic. Whatever one experiences is actually not oneself. We are not the mind, we are not the ego, we are not the intelligence, and we are not this senses, we are not this body. But when we identify ourselves with all these things, that I am this ego and I am this mind and I am this intelligence and I am this body, then somebody um, like say something bad to us, then my ego is hurt or subtle body is hurt or does some physical harm, then my body is hurt and the living entity suffers, either gross or subtle, because the living entity identifies himself with all the external elements. Of course. Now, does it mean by knowing this we will come out of this suffering? No. And Vidura actually, Maitreya describes the whole process how to come out of suffering also. But first, he is describing the root cause. The root cause is the living entity misidentifies himself. And the example is just the living entity in a dream. He misidentify himself as the person in a dream. And when his head is cut off, he goes to a lot of distress. But when he comes out, then he feels relieved because he feels like, oh, I was not that. That was just illusion. I was not really that. So likewise, um, we identify with these things, but when we actually leave the body, then we feel relieved actually. Then another example given is the moon. The moon, when it is reflected on water, appears to tremble. The moon, when it reflects on water, appears to tremble. Like you see the moon and you see in, say, a river, and you feel like the moon is waving here and there. But that is because the matter is moving. But the moon is always fixed. Moon is glowing. Moon is unaffected. But because we are seeing through the lens of the water or through the water, we feel that the moon is suffering. Likewise, the living entity, when he's seen from the eyes of matter, um, then the living entity seems to suffer. But when the living entity is seen from the perception of eternity, just like how Krishna explains, then there is no suffering for the living entity because nothing can touch the soul in that way. Um, so the mm, so these are two examples. One is head cut off in a dream and a person feel distress, and one is moon appears to tremble in water. But both of them are like not the true reality. Likewise, because the living entity misidentify himself with the gross and subtle body, any harm that comes to gross or subtle body, the living entity goes through the suffering. Now, what is the solution of this misidentification? Then um, mm, the misconception of the self, the problem of suffering is self is uh, misidentification, and this misidentification can be diminished by Lord Vasudev's mercy. When we are mercy of the Lord, can we understand ourselves as somebody, not this body? um, it is one thing to discuss, to speak, but it is very different when we realize is I'm not this body. That's a, And that's why Vidura says this is not possible. This is possible only, this suffering can be diminished only by Lord's Vasudev mercy. He does not say suffering is diminished. He says suffering is because of misidentification. And this misidentification can be diminished only by Lord Vasudev's mercy. And Lord Vasudev's mercy is accessible through the process of devotional service in the mood of detachment. By practicing Bhakti Yoga with detachment, one will attract the mercy of Lord Vasudeva. By the mercy of Lord Vasudeva, one will see oneself as part and parcel of Krishna, as having a eternal relationship with Krishna. And when one becomes fixed in one's real identity, then one start unidentifying oneself with the. See, the thing is, we need a new identity to give up an old identity. For example, when the child is born, and you ask, tell me something about yourself. And the child will say, he is my father and he is my mother. She is my mother. And I live in this house. And I am from this city of Kolhapur, whatever, some city. And this becomes our identity. But then after, say, 40 years, then you ask the person, who are you? Then he says, I am a software developer and I am the father of two children, and maybe happily married, and I am living in this city of New York in America. Now you see the whole identification of the person has changed. In a way, the person has given up the old identification and person has accepted a new identification, and he describes himself with the new identification. So if for us to give up our identification with the body, gross and subtle body, we need a new identification, and that comes by Vasudev's mercy. Vasudev's mercy comes by Bhakti Yoga, and it is specifically said Bhakti Yoga in the mood of detachment. Why in the mood of detachment? Because um, Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says one who can practice the regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Because if we do things which are like, it is said to progress in bhakti, we want to do things which are favorable to Krishna and avoid doing things which are unfavorable to Krishna. So in order to not do something, maybe give up some bad habits which are not conducive, um, require some detachment. Um, So bhakti in the mood of detachment will attract Vasudev's mercy. Vasudev's mercy will give us a real identification. This real identification will kind of take us, will transfer our misidentification to identification. Then our suffering will stop. Then two more things Maitreya Muni says. One thing he says is, when the senses are engaged in serving Lord Hari, all the miseries are vanquished. Again, when the senses are engaged in serving Lord Hari, all miseries are vanquished. It is very important to engage our senses in the service of the Lord, or to engage in the service of Lord Hari. Today morning, I was discussing with one devotee that few devotees made very nice progress and came to chanting 16 rounds and developing lot of faith. And we were observing, we were just reflecting that these devotees have developed so much faith and are able to easily chant 16 rounds. And that's because they are engaging in serving the Lord. Anybody who engages in serving Lord Hari will receive the mercy to practice Bhakti Yoga. Krishna also says, always think of me. If you can't always think of me, then you practice the regulative principles of 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. But if you cannot do that, then you work for me. So some people, they have so much bhakti sukriti, they will directly start chanting 16 rounds. And they will remain there and they are very stable and they are deep. They are like, for them, devotion is very natural. But for others, to come to chanting is very difficult. So when they are engaging in the service of the Lord, then they get the mercy to chant 16 rounds and take initiation and take the next steps also. So in this way, they are interconnected. And those who are chanting 16 rounds, now they're more eager to serve. And if they cannot chant, if they can only serve, that is also very nice. They will come to chanting later. So one thing is devotional service. One thing is by engaging the senses in serving Lord Hari. Then all miseries are vanquished. And the third thing Maitamuni says is hearing and chanting the Lord's qualities vanquishes all material miseries. Sadhana bhakti. Hearing and chanting Lord's about the Lord vanquishes all material miseries. So question is why the living entity is miserable? He is miserable because he misidentifies. How he misidentifies, just like he sees the head cut off in a dream and he feel a lot of distress. But actually he was misidentifying with who he is not. It was an illusion, the dream. Likewise, the living entity is misidentifying with the body and mind and senses and ego. And because he identifies, he goes through a lot of suffering. And how can he come out of that suffering? When he actually identify himself, who he is. And that is possible only by the mercy of Vasudeva. And that Vasudeva mercy is available through devotional service. Through three things: devotional service, then engaging the senses in the service of the Lord, and by hearing and chanting, which is basically all that Bhagavad Gita and all that the saintly devotees Srila Prabhupada describe. You hear, you chant, you serve. All right. Then Vidura was very happy. Uh, Vidura says, my dear Maitra Muni, great. All my doubts are cleared. All my doubts about the Lord and the Jiva have been cut off by the weapon of your convincing words. Your words are very clear to me. That the Lord never comes. The Lord is always Vimukta. He is always transcendental. He's eternally liberated. Um, and the living entity is conditioned, and he can become liberated and free from misery by Vasudev's mercy. Vasudev's mercy is eternally liberated. So your words are very convincing, and my doubts are cleared. You have accurately explained that the disturbances of the living entity have no other basis than the Lord's external energy. Only because of Maya, external energy, because of the influence, the living entity feels disturbed. Two kind of people are happy: those who are liberated and those who are lowest of the fools. They enjoy happiness, whereas all other persons in between suffer. Um, this is spoken by Vidura actually, that those who are in ignorance and those who are liberated, they both enjoy. And I was thinking, you may have heard about this example. Prabhupada gave this example of a butcher, and there are many deers lined up, and one deer comes, and the butcher cuts the deer, and then the other deer comes, the butcher cuts the deer. So in this way, many deers are lined up, and this deer who is fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth in the line, the deer is happily enjoying the grass, and the deer is thinking, I'm very happy. Life is very nice. I have such a nice ground and such a nice grass. My life is all set. But the deer is not thinking. He's such a fool. He's not thinking. He's maybe the next one, or maybe in few one, he is going to be butchered. So this is like this fool. Fool means he's thinking that the life is very nice. Life is set. I have said I'm very stable. He's not thinking that he'll be butchered by the material nature. So the greatest fool, lowest of fool, he is happy. And those who are liberated soul, they are happy. Why? Because why the liberated souls are happy? Because they are absorbed in Vasudev, in Krishna. And they don't identify themselves with temporary. So they are, because of that connection, they are always happy. No matter what happens to the body, they're happy in their devotion. And the fools are happy. I'm convinced that this material manifestation is without substance. I will realize this only by serving your feet. So this is also very nice. Um, Vidur asks, how can we become self-realized? Maitreya Muni says, by Bhakti Yoga. We can become self-realized by hearing and chanting, by serving Lord Vasudev. In these ways, we can become self-realized. Um, Prabhupada says, service converts conviction into realization. Service converts conviction into realization. Yes, we have some conviction that I'm not this body, I'm part and parcel of Krishna, I have an eternal relationship with Krishna. I will be happy if I practice Krishna consciousness. So we have certain conviction, certain understanding. We know, we have knowledge. It converts into realization, or it converts into, we realize it through seva. And Vidura is explaining the concept of importance of service to Guru. And he's telling, by serving Vasudev, you will realize that you are part and parcel of Krishna. Um, and Vidura is telling, by serving your lotus feet, I will realize that. And this is like how Gurudev always says, spiritual master always says, that you serve Krishna. In this way, you realize. You will attain self-realization. And a disciple thinks, at the lotus feet of Guru, if I render service to lotus feet of Guru, then I will become self-realized. Vidura says, the service to spiritual master results in, gives two benefits for those who serve spiritual master. One is, they develop transcendental ecstasy in Lord service. Those who have deeper relationship with spiritual master, or depend, or who have the mercy of spiritual master, they will develop transcendental ecstasy while serving the Lord. And also all their material distress will be dispelled simultaneously. And then in the end, he says, but those people whose austerity is very meager, alpa tapasa, very less, who are not austere, can hardly obtain the service of pure devotees who are constantly glorifying the Lord, and who are on the path to Vaikuntha. So it is said that, okay, um, service to spiritual master is very important. By serving to spiritual master, one will become free from all miseries. And by service to spiritual master, one will develop ecstasy in rendering one's devotional service. But that service to spiritual master is not available for those whose tapa, austerity, is very meager. And that's why it is said that service to pure devotees is very rare. I think for myself also, yes, I don't have that opportunity of rendering service. I mean, we try to serve devotees, but we may not be qualified to serve like great devotees, like who are completely liberated, or who have that pure love for Krishna. We may not be able to get such association or render such devotees. And the reason here he says is, people whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of pure devotees who constantly glorify the Lord. Then few more questions. Vidura says, please explain to me the different vibhutis, means different energy, different powers of the Supreme Lord. All tell me everything that the Lord has created, which is Sarga. Tell me everything that Brahma created, which is Visarga. Tell me about all the Manus. Tell me about descendants of all those Manus. Tell me about different planets in this universe. Where are they situated? What are their measurements? Like their radius or um, length, height, width? What are their measurements? Tell me about the different categories of living entities. Tell me about how the living entities are divided, the subdivisions of different kinds of living entities. Tell me about the Lord's Gunavatar, which is basically Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, their Gunavatar. Tell me about the pastimes of the Lord Himself. Tell me about Varnashram Dharma. Tell me about the great sages and how the Vedas are divided. Tell me about what is the purpose and goal of yoga. What is yagya? How to perform yagya? What is the goal of yagya? Tell me about Sankhya Yoga. What is Sankhya Yoga? What is the goal? Why people practice Sankhya Yoga? What is Jnani Yoga? What people do? What do Jnanis follow? What is their goal? Tell me also about Narada Pancharatra, which describes the deity worship. Tell me also about um, the imperfections of atheist and the imperfections of crossbreeding, and how the living entities are going from one species to another, and what kind of species they get based on their karma and based on their guna. Tell me about the four goals of life, which is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Tell me more why these are considered to be the goals of life, and also tell me about how the people are punished and what what mistake leads to what punishment. Tell me also about how to perform the death rites. Tell me something about the Pitras, where do they live? Tell me about the different constellation, like the stars arrangement. Tell me about how the time is divided. Tell me about how to practice charity, how to give charity, how to perform tapa, austerity. What are the duties in different circumstances of a living entity based on their varnashram? How can one completely satisfy the Supreme Lord? And the spiritual master is very kind to all living entities. And the Guru, he gives all knowledge without even being asked. Indirectly, Vidura is asking, also tell me everything that I may not have asked. Please help, please elaborate on all these subject matters. How many kinds of material dissolutions are there? Like we see at the end of Brahma, maybe after the Chatur Yugas, or maybe after the day of Brahma, maybe after the Kalpa. So tell me about how many different kind of material dissolutions are there. And tell me after each dissolution, who survives? And when the Lord goes to sleep, who is there to serve the Lord? When all the living entities dies, who actually serves the Lord when the Lord is asleep? Tell me about the tattva of the living entity and the tattva of Ishwar, Bhagavan. Tell me about the essential knowledge of the Vedas. And also tell me about the importance of accepting a spiritual master. And tell me about the qualification of a shishya, of a disciple. So in this way, and then he says that all this knowledge is impossible without a guru. And that's why I'm present. So that's why this, because of so many different wide varieties of topics, and all these will be answered by Maitreya. And we see there is Lord Kapila Muni's teaching. It will continue for two cantos. This and all this about different hellish planets are discussed in fifth canto. So this becomes kind of basis of many future cantos to come. I ask all these questions with a view to know the pastimes of Hari. So kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision, because people don't know in general about any of these things. People become kind of very self-absorbed in one's daily routine life, and that's why if you describe all these things and give us a chance to hear, then it will be very beneficial and it will give them a vision. Those who have lost their vision will be able to see from the perspective of knowledge. Your answers will grant immunity from all material miseries. And this charity is the greater, is this charity is greater than all charity, sacrifices, penances, etc. This is the biggest charity, is the charity of the real knowledge. Maitreya, capable of explaining the Puranas, being self-realized, all-knowing, um, enlivened by Vidura's questions, began to narrate Bhagavad Katha. And this is the end of the chapter. Maitreya was very satisfied with all these questions. And then he began to explain Bhagavad Katha. And yeah. So, okay. So that's all. Uh, Many inquiries. Um, so are there any discussion?
Krishna Prabhu, Dandar Pranam. Do we have any? Uh, it's very nice lecture, Prabhu. You explained very detailed. One question, Prabhuji. Do we have any knowledge about what happened to Maitreya Muni after this Bhagavatam Katha? You know, is there any difference what happened to Maitreya Muni after the Vidura interaction?
Not that I'm aware of, Prabhu. There is a mention of Vidura, what happened to him after. He
Yeah,
went to the Pandavas,
yeah.
he took Dhritarashtra, and then he departed and joined as Yamaraj. But not, I don't know if there is much mention about Maitreya. But it's safe to say he practiced his austerities, preached the message, and went back to Godhead, I guess.
That is the responsibility Lord Krishna given to Maitreya Muni because he said like go instruct Vidura once he comes.
Yes, yes,
That's a service for the Lord. But there is nowhere mentioned Prabhuji, correct? In
yes.
Bhagavatam? Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
What happened to Maitreya after Vidura leaves? Maybe, I mean, not that I remember. Maybe as we go in more detail, when maybe in this reading, maybe we find out. But I don't remember anything right now, probably.
Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Very good.
Bhagavatam is so vast now that it's very difficult to say something with clarity. That yeah, this is much not there. Because it's so vast. Okay, thank you. And we are all like Kali Yuga memory also now. So we may read and then we may overlook few things. So we'll find out, but not that I remember. Thank you. Okay. Any
Prabhuji,
other
I had a
discussion?
question.
हाँ yes माताजी बताइए.
Prabhuji, I did not understand the point of bhakti with detachment.
How to practice bhakti with detachment?
Yeah, I did not understand that point when you were explaining.
देखिए माताजी, in Bhagavad Gita, 1 second, मैं आपको कुछ दिखाता हूँ. You can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. देखो एक वर्ष है भगवद गीता. There is a verse in Bhagavad Gita in 15th chapter. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree, which is basically material world or material life. One must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. And therefore, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns and they are surrendered to that supreme personality of Godhead. Basically, the idea is Lord Krishna explains this material world to a reflection, and the real tree is the spiritual world. And we are very much attached to this world. And Lord Krishna is telling you, take an axe and then you cut your attachments to this world and you take shelter of the Supreme Lord and try to go to that place from where, having gone, one never returns.
Hmm.
So, from that perspective, we see, because when we are very attached, then um,
Yeah,
it is,
I,
you got it right.
yeah. I actually thought detachment from Krishna. So now I got it. And you meant detachment from the materialistic world.
Yes,
Got
yeah.
it.
There is just, it is also described in Bhagavatam that detachment is also the effect of bhakti. By practicing bhakti itself, detachment will come. So detachment and bhakti, they are one is a product of another. But the
Hmm.
goal is bhakti, detachment is a byproduct. There is another verse that reminds me is Kunti Devi praying, and she's telling, please cut off my attachment to my children, Pandus, to the Vrishni, to the Bhojas dynasty, basically my in-laws, my mother side, my children, and let my attachment flow only towards you, Krishna. Just like the Ganga never stops till it meets the ocean, and Ganga is attracted to only the ocean. And anything that comes in between Ganga, the Ganga crosses over. It is said that Ganga, if the mountain comes in front of Ganga, then the Ganga gradually by the force will even cut the mountains also. And Ganga will keep flowing. So just like Ganga is attached only to the ocean, let my attraction be only to you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Also, it is said one way the detachment comes is by knowledge. This is also mentioned in Uddhav Gita. Lord Krishna says, you develop a detachment from this world with an acts of knowledge. Because knowledge tells us this is not good for me. And Krishna also speaks in our heart, this is not good for me. So even though attachment may be there, but then we practice detachment because we know this is not good for me. So initially knowledge is needed. And then once with the knowledge, we have become detached from this world, then you give up that knowledge also. You just throw the axe and then you practice pure bhakti. But it is said that till we become very advanced, attachments will be there. And that's why knowledge is an important ingredient for us to take shelter of hearing, reading, constant association, so that we safely navigate this materialistic world in a way that it is favorable to Krishna. But when our attraction to Krishna is very, very strong, then we are anyways, because we cannot detach from this world till we are very much attached to Krishna. But our attachment to Krishna is not strong, or it's like hardly visible. So naturally, it will be very difficult to detach, because then we have no basis to attach to, and that's where the knowledge helps. The knowledge helps to remain detached and um, practice. It's a little bit that's why it's called sadhana. It's a stage of practice. But when by this practice the attachment to Krishna actually develops and pure bhakti begins, then through the knowledge also, detachment is anyways a byproduct of attachment to Krishna, and then just walk straight walk in path of bhakti.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That's very helpful. I had another question, Prabhuji, but that's not related to our session today. Two
You
questions.
can ask if you like.
Yeah. So Prabhuji, in one of the groups, somebody had shared an article that's by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. Can I read out? I have a question on that.
Okay.
We should not be humble when interacting with rascals, false pretenders, crooked and cunning cheaters, demons, no matter how they are dressed, what so called position they have, as who they are assuming or presenting themselves to be. The Mahajanas have advised that one's humility should not be made evident in front of anyone and everyone. To express one's humility in front of a demoniac person like Ravana or in front of a pretentious Brahmana is not Vaishnav Seva, nor is it Trinad Api Sunikachata. If a person does so, he can never attain the ability to perform kirtana, nor can he develop taste for chanting the holy names. In fact, such a misplaced display of humility is an act of violence toward other living entities. So,
Amazing.
yeah, I think you understand my question here.
So your question is where not to display?
And so that no, not exactly that, because they already mentioned that, but I mean, so far my understanding has been that we have to be humble, and we also, I think I don't know, but I think here or somewhere else we have heard of stories where, you know, if a person is good, or a living entity, whatever their nature is, they will always be what they are irrespective of the circumstances, and that's what they should be always. So that's one thing. And the other point that came to my mind is that, you know, most of the people that we are surrounded by would somewhere, you know, is some way fall into, you know, uh, most of these categories. There would be some people who might be really nice people, but then we also may not even know that they are, you know, deeply really nice. So how do we, um you know, so most of the times we'll end up not being humble. And another thing is that we may not even know deep down inside who they are. So all of these things, so this whole verse was actually pretty confusing to me.
Thank you, Margaret. See, day-to-day dealings, I mean, it depends. See the perspective. Saraswati Thakur is speaking because he's whom Saraswati Thakur is dealing with. He is dealing with those people who are hypocrite. Like some people say, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission said Hare Krishna Maha Mantra should not be chanted out loud. But the mantra, which is the Maha Mantra, is Bhajo Nitya Gaur Radhe Shyam Hare Krishna Hare Ram. And Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is only to be chanted. Then there are atheistic people who condemn and who are going against. Saraswati Thakur is like, he is facing lot of oppositions and lot of upper sampradayas. And the whole teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were like um, covered, or they were overcome by hypocrites. And it's nobody is actually getting the real understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. And people are dancing like Radha and Krishna, and so many Sahajya groups are also there during Saraswati Thakur's time. And then Saraswati Thakur want to establish pure devotion. So Saraswati Thakur cannot go to them and he says, you know, yes, very nice, Prabhu, you are Sahajya and you dance like Radha and Krishna and fulfill the street desires, very good, you know, we are very humble. Or going, you know, this is upper sampradaya and Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is like, you know, should not be chanted in kirtans. Yeah, okay, Prabhu, that's fine. So he's not, he has to fight. He has to establish dharma. So there, and if he actually allows those people to keep going their propaganda, and the innocent people who are looking for pure spiritual advancement to come under the grip of these hypocrites, then that is actually violence. When Saraswati Thakur knows what to do and he allows them to go in this way, then there is actually violence. So there is, you know, these courts have a lot of um, um, like there's a time, place, circumstances
Yeah.
in
Um,
which we are dealing, the time, place, where is Sasrai Thakur, what he's writing, where he's coming from. So when we are dealing with, I mean, again, it's subjective question. Not We may not get such people many times, but rather, but I mean, there are two options. If you meet an atheist, for example, now we have to see, or offenders or those kind of people. Now we have to see, are we bold enough and strong enough and knowledgeable enough to defeat them by arguments? If we can do, there is nothing wrong in those arguments and defeating them. Another way is that we back out and then we leave the place and we have nothing to do with them, or we just don't associate with them. So again, it depends upon the circumstances. It also depends upon the nature of the person. Like one example I remember was Srila Prabhupada and Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So one politician, he invited Prabhupada. He was launching a book, and that book has maybe some realizations from Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada read that book, and he was a big politician. Many people came, and he told, because Prabhupada was very famous. He's the founder Acharya for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So politician asked Prabhupada, can you speak few glories of this world? And this politician actually, he organized the festival. He invited a lot of guests, and this like his book opening, like that kind of ceremony, big parties going on, and Prabhupada had to speak few words. And Prabhupada took that opportunity and glorified Krishna and importance of Bhagavad Gita. And then the politician asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, speak something about the book that I wrote. Prabhupada says, yeah, in this book, the concepts are not correct. You should read Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Prabhupada was so bold that he would not just try to please somebody, but he was always trying to please Krishna and help people to get the real knowledge of Krishna. And Prabhupada said, this is all bogus. So in this way, Prabhupada was very strong. So then there was a similar instance where His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was invited by a politician, big politician, a big gathering of many elite people. And then he asked Radhanath Maharaj to speak something about this book. So Maharaj saw the book. Maharaj asked one of the disciples to see what the tattva of the book says. And it's all bogus. God is impersonal and all those things were there. So then Maharaj decided not to go. Then the devotee, the disciple asked Maharaj, Maharaj, why didn't you go? Maharaj says, see, I'm not Prabhupada. Prabhupada can go and Prabhupada can speak against the politician in his party. But that's not my nature. And that's why I decide to stay back. Both are shastrically correct. You can either refute by argument or you avoid going there. But in both the places, support should not be given. So one has to see one's nature and act in those circumstances.
Yeah, got it, Prabhuji. But the second one, Prabhuji, like it's not always possible that you do not involve yourself with people. Like, like there are always circumstances where you have to involve yourself with the,
Yeah.
yeah.
If somebody speaks against God or something, then taking a stand there is nothing wrong in that. Or somebody is blasphemous of devotees or something like that, like atheist or impersonalist, then being strong with them, there we don't need to exhibit our humility and say, yes, you are right. No, we never say that. So taking a strong stand and say, no, this is not right. And that's not being not humble.
Yeah.
Understood?
Got it, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Anything else?
Yeah, I had actually one more question, but
Go.
do we have time? Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Uh, so there was one session we have in the mornings I attended, and we have kind of discussed it in the past also. So in that session, um, I don't exactly remember the stories, but the message that I understood was like, for example, the story of Prahlad. And then there were some other stories I don't recall. So the message was that if somebody does something which hurts us, we should not. We should just tolerate it, and we should not do anything in reaction. Um, so, and then we had also discussed about the story about um, that snake that that was really nice and that was crushed. So I actually brought up this story and so um, so the answer I got was that we should stand up and we should display anger. But I really got actually confused. Like I felt like I was actually more confused because what are the circumstances where we should really tolerate? Because all the stories, wherever the person tolerated were all very glorified. And then we also have this message that we should stand up and take some action. So yeah, I'm really confused. I don't know if I was able to put forth my question properly or not.
I mean, somehow to me, your question seems to be like the last one, where
Yeah,
it's
it is similar. Uh, it is similar, but yeah, it's a bit different also. S- So because
anger,
yeah,
anger displayed to rectify one's dependent is okay. Anger displayed when it is anger displayed for the sake of others' betterment is okay. When it is not because I am hurt, but if it is somebody who, like the children, or maybe parents or loved ones, if they do something wrong and try to bring them in the right direction or to help them stop something, and anger displayed in that direction is okay. Anger displayed against atheists, blasphemers, offenders is okay. Apasampradayas and other things is okay. So we are not against, not angry, but it's just there are certain situations where it's okay to use, and anger also speak for others' faith, to protect others' faith is okay. But anger, because somebody speaks something to me, a personal comment or a personal hatredness or something where only I am involved and somebody is angry, that should be tolerated.
so Prabhuji, that story where we talk about that snake was told to show anger because he was getting attacked personally.
To hiss,
To his, yeah,
because people were taking advantage of, yes, that's why it is also said that if somebody is exploiting, and you know that if you are in the situation and you will probably lose temper, or uh, you cannot do what they say, or it's exploitativeness, and then in those cases staying away, or um, um, dealing in a way that you don't give them chance to exploit you, and drawing the lines there, so you can practice Krishna consciousness in a peaceful way and do your things in a stable consciousness. And like one is like extreme case, like and one is like whatever is needed to just draw the line to convey in a subtle way that there's a line and cannot exploit me beyond it, and that is fine, and that needs to be done. That's what this snake, because people are like, you can hit him and he will be in pools of blood and the snake will not do anything. Then the snake, everyone has a right to protect oneself now. It is said that if somebody tries to kill, you can kill them, and that's fine. So if somebody
mm,
is trying to kill the snake and the snake comes and hiss, not with the intention to kill them, but to protect one's body, fine. There is nothing wrong. It's dharma to protect one's body. That's why it is said Arjuna, I suppose, should be killed. If there is humility, then why should Pandavas fight? Why should
yeah,
Krishna say, kill Karna, kill Arjuna, kill? Why? Because they were aggressors. So Krishna
yeah.
says, no. Ashwadhama is an aggressor. So Krishna told Arjuna, kill him. And Draupadi showed compassion, but Prabhupada glorifies Draupadi, and he also says, but this is not the right display of compassion. So Prabhupada says, for and against both in that case. So um, if aggressor, somebody's aggressor, then drawing a line or conveying a message, nothing wrong in that.
Okay, so we should. So where is it that I got this point? So basically, we should draw a subtle line wherever somebody is exploiting us. And where do we tolerate?
Well, the thing is, like what I try to do personally in my life, if there is something and I feel like, oh, this is taking advantage or something, some kind, then I'll tolerate and do it. And the next time I draw the line
Hmm.
because I understand, okay, this is not good. But my personal nature is, as much as possible, I would not speak
Hmm.
against them or harshly with them, but I observe everything and the things as they are. I try to observe, and then I see what is favorable for my practice of Krishna consciousness. But the tolerance part is there. When things go wrong, then okay, tolerate. No need to make like no need to make a like make it big. Okay,
Hmm.
fine. Okay, lesson learned. Now see, in
Hmm.
that way we navigate.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. I think I understand. So draw a subtle line, but at the same time, if things don't go as desired, just tolerate that.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. Good.
And things will happen, things will not go. And because we also hear some things don't go right because whatever reasons.
Yeah.
We may try our best, but Krishna has his own plans to bring
Hmm.
multiple tests for us.
Hmm.
Then we try to see them as tests and keep it
Hmm.
keep our composure there.
Hmm. And it also sounds like that we have to listen to, I don't know if I'm wording it right, but the voice inside us to navigate every situation to see where exactly to tolerate and how much to tolerate.
Yeah,
And
it's nice if we are clear, if it is based on Shastra, act on it directly. But if we are doubtful, is this the right thing I am doing? Sometimes multiple voices are there and we are a little bit confused. There some kind of consultation helps with
mm,
devotees.
mm. Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Aarti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Welcome.
Anything else? Any other devotees have?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Krishna. Prabhuji, I don't have
Hare
question for
Krishna.
today's session, but I have some another question, Prabhuji. I have the question that four Kumaras who went to meet means in Vaikuntha and Jai Vijay stopped. So that time they were Nirveshwadi, right?
So were four Kumaras before they met Vishnu, were they impersonalist? Yes.
Yeah. And when the Tulasi from his lotus feet touched their nostril streams, then that time they became actually they realized the personal form of Vishnu, right? Like they started
Yes.
believing.
Yes.
So when they were Brahma's, actually they are Brahma's sons. So how that is possible? Like it was little bit inconceivable. Like Brahma knows who is Krishna, right? But
Yes.
his sons are not aware like it's in Krishna is in personal
Well,
form.
no,
Krishna has personal
impersonalist.
form.
It's not that impersonalists don't know the form of Narayan. They just think that having no form is higher than the form. That's all. The only difference between personalist and impersonalist, personalist knows that Brahman comes from Krishna. Impersonalist thinks that Krishna comes from Brahman. But when they know Narayan is there, they want to see Narayan. And they see Narayan as the fullest form of Brahman. So they are very eager. And they are Brahmavadi, so they realize Brahman and they are very attracted to Brahman. But when they see Narayan, they found the joy of seeing Narayan as millions of times more than the joy they will experience by remembering or meditating on merging into Brahman. So they realize that how the Lord is actually the source. That is only his effulgence, and they become devotees of Narayan. But they know about Narayan.
Okay, so does it mean Prabhuji that they have no knowledge about the three forms like Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan? Because if one knows those three forms, then it can be very easily understandable. Like Bhagwan is the supreme form, right? Like it is the highest form.
No, they Brahmavadis also know that the Lord is there in the heart of all living entity, and who is there in the heart of all living entity is actually Brahma. That's what they think. Brahman is there in the heart of all living entities. Brahman has manifested himself in the form of Narayan. So they see everything from the practice of this, so they're Brahmavad. They see Brahman everywhere.
Okay, got it. So it means that they know three forms, but they just don't know the hierarchy, like which is the
No, they don't know
most
hierarchy.
hierarchy.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay, understood. That's where they get bewildered. Like they just think
Yeah.
Brahman is only the highest. Okay, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Today, most of the questions are outside the discussion.
Prabhuji, may I able to call you after this session? Is it possible for a few minutes?
Yeah, okay, Prabhu, you can call.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, if no other questions, then probably we can end. Thank you very much for joining. Vanchakalpatarubhesha kripa sindhubhe evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo. Anandakoti Vaishnavavrinda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you so much,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So, Radha Bhavani Mataji, I think then Girish Prabhu, Soumya Mataji, I think she left. Girish Prabhu, Soumya Mataji, Ananthari Prabhu, are we okay with Sunday at 8:30 p.m. for our Bhagavatam discussion? Moving on Sunday to 8:30 p.m. EST.
From next
Okay.
week onwards, Prabhuji.
Soumya, say again.
It will from
From
next week,
next
right?
week.
We can.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji. I heard my name. I joined Reback, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
What I was asking is moving our Bhagavatam discussion to
Yes.
8:30 p.m. Sunday
Okay.
next week or next to next week, either ways, because from 17th onwards, I have
Okay.
a contradictory engagement
Okay.
at this time. So I want to move the session to a time which works for all of you also.
Yes, Prabhuji. I am fine, Prabhuji. I am fine, Prabhuji.
Sunday 8:30 p.m.
Yes,
So,
yes, Prabhuji. I am fine, Prabhuji. Absolutely, I am fine, Prabhuji.
so from
Girish, please.
Saturday morning 10 a.m. to Sunday evening 8:30 p.m.
8:30 p.m. Yeah. Is it okay with you?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
It's okay, Prabhuji, for my thing.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Prabhuji.
Thank
Dandavat
you,
pranam.
Mataji. Thank you, Girish Prabhu.
Dandavat pranam.
And Soumya
Yeah,
Mataji,
8:30. Yeah, 8:30 p.m. works, Prabhuji. Yeah.
8:30 p.m. evening
Yeah.
time,
That,
EST.
yeah. Even. Yeah. That means 5:30 for us.
You are also
This is
California.
more good, Prabhuji. Or morning
Yeah.
rushing, at least evening, we have to quiet way to peacefully, for do the,
Right.
nothing should become. So then I am fine, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
It's
Alright,
good,
right.
Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay. आनंद प्रभु आपके लिए काम करेगा 8:30 p.m. Sunday EST और Michigan time.
Yes, Prabhuji. Good, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll end here. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
I have
Dandavat
one
pranam,
more
Prabhuji.
question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, do you have any other sessions for any other readings?
Zoom sessions.
Yeah, Zoom sessions.
But Sunday still works for you? Sunday 8:30 p.m.
Yes, Prabhuji. Not for the Bhagavatam, but I was just generally asking if
Some
there are
other
any
Zoom
other,
session.
like any other Gita session or any other books that you read and go through. If you have any other sessions, I would like to attend that.
I think right now this is the only Zoom session I am doing.
Okay.
I think so. Trying to remember. Others are more like Bhagavatam classes, like once in a week, whichever verses comes, but there is no specific systematic discussion that I'm doing right now. We may soon start Bhakti Shastri again, where we will cover Bhagavad Gita also. But I will let you know. In the
Okay.
whole group, we'll let.
Sure, Prabhuji. And the other one that you spoke about, which is not systematic, but is the time like
It's
the time is it constant, or is it?
time is
Yeah.
constant, but it may not work for you because it's 8:15 a.m. in the morning, which is
Okay.
5:15 a.m. for you on a weekday.
Yeah, that will not work for me.
You know. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
Hare
Navadvip.
Krishna, Dandavat
Dhanwad
Pranam.
Pranam. Hare Krishna.